Hello and welcome to the show. For this week's FailRace versus the community, we were to go racing with 80's cars in B-Class. I had opted to use the Holden Commodore. I have a very fast C-Class one that has been used in a couple of our community, upgraded it to B in the hope that it might still be a pretty damn competitive car. I had a lot of work to be doing, having started down towards the back of the field, a couple of cars escaping towards the grass, and it's kind of three wide. Lamborghini runs out of space. It's quite hectic. It does tend to be at the start of any race, especially around a small, relatively narrow track such as Hockenheim. On the most part, though, we made it through. I was staring at the back of a little Fiat as we head through one of the fastest corners on the track. Not much room to try and get overtakes done through there, and as we head down towards the hairpin, Fiat covers the inside, runs a little bit wide in the braking zone. However, no chance for the Holden to try and get underneath it as the BMW gets a very big slide. I think about having to go up the inside into the final corner, but can't quite keep my car far enough alongside. Further up towards the front, already the leaders were escaping away. The front two were very quickly making a break for it. In third was a Sierra Cosworth that was struggling a little bit for pace. Very quick through the corners, but was getting absolutely murdered down any of the straights. This MR2 was looking for a way past as they head through the hairpin. Not much chance up until here, second to last corner. One of my favourite spots for having a big dive up the inside. However, the Sierra would cover that, and again around the final corner, Sierra continues to defend that inside. The problem is, the more you defend, the more time you lose as you're taking a slightly wonky line. The MR2 having a go up the inside down towards turn one. Turn one is such a hard place, though, to get overtakes done. You've got to really have your car fully alongside. Both cars having issues across the curbs on the exit. The exit of turn one is notoriously dangerous for spinning cars. The curbs there are absolutely horrendous. The Sierra would very quickly make a bit of a train going on through this pack. Johnson had also joined us for this race, opting to run a classic BMW. Sierra losing a position to the Fiat there. The BMW now going for a sniff as well as we head down the back straight, and the speed of the BMW would just about see it past, although the Ford has got very good brakes, was carrying incredibly good corner speed, fights back on the inside. BMW is going to have to do things the hard way, so around the outside, and he will have the grip to get away with that one, and that will put you on the preferred line into the hairpin. The Ford had fought as best he could, but in the end not quite got the overall speed of that BMW. And another car that was going quickly through the field, the Renault 5 Turbo, had a little bit of an adventure on lap one, but he was quickly catching up. Further back, we had Lamborghini versus Porsche. The 911, not a huge amount of PI to play around with in the Porsche, perhaps a little bit more difficult car to build for B-Class, and it was struggling slightly for speed as the Countach would go, soaring past down the back straight, outbrake him into the next corner, even with the Lamborghini a little bit too close for comfort with that wall. Gets away with it. The Porsche struggling to get the car turned in as a Lancia 037 would come soaring up the inside. The Lancia has got to do it the long way round at the hairpin, but the Porsche just doesn't have the grip, doesn't have the brakes quite to fight with these other vehicles. Back towards this front group, and the Mazda RX-7, the Buzz, it's normally a Buzz box. I don't think it has the standard engine in it anymore, because, no, that's definitely not. It's definitely not making its normal howling noise. I think that's got a V8 in it. As he had started again fair way down the order, is catching up to this midfield. The Ferrari 288 GTR. I was very tempted to run, but does start almost right at the top of B-Class. Not a huge amount you can do in terms of upgrades, and running a little bit wide out of that final corner is not ideal for the Ferrari. It just clips the dirt, clips the gravel trap, and that is not going to help you in terms of speed. The inside curb at turn 1 is also almost as dangerous as the outside one. The RX-7 gets turned in okay, but hits the inside curb that just launches the car across the track and escorts the Ferrari a little bit wide, completely unintentionally. But the curbs are vicious at turn 1 around here. Johnson was in a big old fight for third. As I said, the top two had very much checked out of this race. The Fiat was trying to cling on to third place under pressure from the BMW. However, the Renault 5 was absolutely flying. racing around here. And that was giving the BMW issues. The BMW can't go all-out attack on the little Fiat when you have a Renault 5 looking for every opportunity to try and find a way past. Yeah, the Renault 5 was absurdly quick around this circuit. Still having a look, BMW goes a bit more defensive around this final corner. If you can get around the final corner with the position, as I said, so difficult to get a move done into turn 1, and BMW was fast in a straight line. The Renault was going to have a go as they both just about squeezed their way through that first corner. The M6 forced a little bit wide, continues to fight for the position down at turn 2. Renault able to carry that corner speed and would get past, although BMW once more coming back as we head down the longer back straight, although not quite able to get into position. The Renault having to go defensive now. This was a fantastic battle over third position. You can see these guys here had also pulled away from the rest of us, squabbling for position a little bit further back. Yeah, Hockenheim Short does tend to produce some great racing, and while there was bits of great racing around, there is no doubt about that, there was also quite big gaps at the front of the field that we don't tend to see around this track. The Buick would go on to take victory, certainly helped from starting, I think, on pole, or certainly right at the very front. Could pull a massive lead early on while everybody else was busy fighting for position. Similar story for the RX-7 in second place. Relatively clear, clean early start would allow them to get away, and with the rest of us fighting for places further back, it is, there's a big margin, especially when the cars are as fast as them. Further back, the closest finish of the field would be for the lower placings in the top 10. MR2 was desperately trying to hold off an A86, but running wide at the hairpin is never the best idea. Does just about get away with that one, but is again having to go very, very defensive into that second to last corner and turns in a tad too soon, bounces it across the curb. That means he ends up out wide through the second part of that corner, leaves space on the inside for the blue Toyota that will take any opportunity you can get, and that will put the A86 up a position. Race number 2, and we would head to the Road America circuit. This, the west layout, not the alternate layout that I tend to run, so we don't have the very nasty chicane to start the course. Instead, we have a very, very fast corner. Already a few vehicles getting into trouble. RX-7 off in the background. Someone went into the tyre bundle. I got pushed off as well at turn 1. I got away with it, though, in my Holden as we run down towards the first big braking zone. The Alfa Spider had a lot of straight line speed, but not quite the control. I'm pretty sure the Alfa was out on the grass when it tried to slow down for that corner. The Buick, though, would find himself up into the lead again. Impressive straight line speed in these Buicks, but a little bit more of a handful through the corners, as you can imagine, against a Commodore that do tend to be fantastically good cars to drive. It was always likely to be a challenge for the Buick to hold on as the rest of the field would file our way through that nasty corner. Again, I had a lot of work to do in this one, starting a fair way down the order. Ferrari very, very sideways. Takes a little bit of a trip across the grass. He would lose a place and drop further back. The Buick couldn't get the car turned in, and the Holden would, again, you got an opportunity like that, big gap at the inside. The Holden would go for it, of course. The Buick has got that straight line speed to fight back down the next straight. Make it difficult for the Commodore. He's going to have to go around the outside of one corner, but the Commodore is really where you want him to be as you come onto this very, very long final corner, especially when you're fighting up against a Buick that is very, very much struggling to get turned, and the Holden would take the lead. Further back, I'd managed to make my way through this group of cars that were battling for position, led by a 205 with a mighty wing. Unfortunately, the 205s do tend to struggle to get them to work. Just about in any class, really, the 205s do struggle. And this one gets mugged down the start-finish line as a BMW and Sierra would go either side of it into turn 1. It's a scary place going 2 wide towards that corner, let alone 3 wide. Everybody did get away with it. Sierra did escape the course ever so slightly. On the exit of the corner, the Ford then has a think about trying to get up the inside of the M5, not quite able to get far enough as the Peugeot would run out of brakes and end up in the gravel trap. Further up through the field. The Ferrari was continuing to hold on to a relatively decent position, although a big oversteer moment off the curb would give it some trouble. That's an opportunity for the M6 to have a go up the inside in towards these next corners. Ferrari, well, if you've got the grip, you can sometimes hold it alongside. You can make it very difficult for the car ahead, although the Ferrari, not quite able to carry that corner speed. Actually gets trapped down. It's good driving from the BMW. Keeps the Ferrari very low on that corner, means he has to take an incredibly tight line, and in the end, yeah, the Ferrari just can't quite carry the speed. I was on a little bit of a charge through the field with my Holden. It was working very well at this circuit. Get up the inside of an RX-7. You can see how hard I was pushing the car as we have a slight moment on the grass. We get away with that. The RX-7, though, keen to see if he can have an opportunity at fighting away back past. I was now coming up against the Buick. I knew how much straight line speed the Buick had down some of the certainly longer straights. The Holden's not slow, but it's certainly not got the speed of that American car. You've got to be patient around Road America as we head up towards this final corner. I knew I would have so much more grip than that Buick, and sure enough, he's struggling with understeer. I actually struggled a little bit in the mid-corner. I think I just hit the curb on the inside that sent me a little bit up the track. We do get the move done. Sadly, the Ferrari would lag out. You got to see the ghost car freak out ahead of us, so didn't have an opportunity to fight with that one as we then head into turn one. It's the RX-7 causing some issues. I needed to get far enough away from the Buick for the time when we came down the straight, and thankfully I had managed it. Johnson was swapped cars using a Porsche 944, working his way through the field, fighting up against a BMW as we head down towards that first big braking zone. The Porsche not quite able to get far enough alongside. Does get a good run off the corner, but is again going to be stuck having to try and go the long way round. And the more that these two fight, even though it might only be for half a lap, it's helping the cars behind to try and catch up. The Porsche gets a huge oversteer moment, tries to get on the power, manages to correct it, loses the place to the BMW, and then immediately under threat. The Alpha Spider is having a go up the outside. Not a typical place to try and get a pass done. However, if you can make it work, which the Alpha does, fantastic job, even with a wheel on the grass, does get the pass done. Now Porsche is under threat from another convertible. The Fiat carries massive speed around the outside of everybody as it's three wide into the hairpin. The Fiat would make the position. Alpha Spider doesn't have the grip to fight with the Porsche and loses both of those places. The 944 gets a great run out towards this really long last corner, can get it on the inside, and both the two convertibles very fast in a straight line, lacking a bit of control, a little bit of grip through some of the corners. So yeah, in the end the Porsche would work itself out. Now I was actually catching this group relatively quickly, helped by their huge tussle for position. The Holden working very well around this circuit as I was now trying to find a way past the Alpha Spider. The problem was it was so bloody fast in a straight line. I could never quite get my vehicle in a position to get a pass done. I was every single corner I was looking for ways past. I was a much quicker car over the course of a lap, but the Alpha was defending very well. It was by far the widest Spider that I think I have ever seen as we headed in towards this hairpin. Once more, it just covers the inside, and there is not quite any position I can put the Holden that would let me get past into this very long final corner. The Alpha's hugging that inside line, means you have to try to go around the outside, and the Holden's good, but that's a very long way. I get a really good run off the turn as well, even having to try going around the outside. I get a mega run off the turn, but I can't do anything because the Spider's got too much straight line speed, and I try to carry a bit too much of my own speed through turn one, and that's going to put me back at half a lap as we go for a bit of an escape across the grass. At the front though, and it would be the black and blue Commodore that would go on to take victory. I mean, if I can't take a win, then it may as well be another Holden, having got to the lead again relatively early on, able to escape all of the battles. Johnson's Porsche was up into second and was starting to catch towards the end of the race, but ran out of time, stuck in too many battles for him to do anything about the leader, and it would be the purple BMW that would get the last of the podium positions. But it was all very close, further back, and that closer than I had realised. I had massively caught up to this group, but ran out of lap times, or ran out of laps, I should say, sorry, for me to do anything about them. The BMW was frantically fending off the Fiat. I was very, very surprised to see the 124s actually being competitive. I was thinking they're going to be crazy out-of-control vehicles, but they were actually very, very competitive in all of this. The Fiat not quite able, though, to do anything about the BMW in the background. Yeah, I couldn't find my way past the M6 on that final lap. Further back, though, the closest of finishes would be between the Buick and the RX-7. Again, this for about 8th and 9th place. I believe as we head into this final corner, the RX-7 desperately trying to find a way past this Buick. The Buick struggling massively around this very, very long final corner. The Mazda spots the gap up the inside and goes for it. The Buick's got the power, though, as they run towards the finish line. Incredibly close between the pair of them there. As you can see, though, there was some pretty big gaps going on in the fields further back. However, the gap between these two was, well, not very much. Not very much at all. As we know, Forza measures where a car finishes by when the front wheel crosses the line. The Buick would take the position by about a wheel's width. It's not a particularly big gap between those two. Final race, and we would head to the Nürburgring GP circuit in the pouring rain, which meant the all-wheel drive cars might be a bit happier here. We had a 205 with a mighty wing trying to survive turn 1. Ends up a wheel on the grass in the braking zone is never a good idea down towards that corner. Gets away with it, can kind of just skirt around the outside and stay out of trouble. But yeah, not an ideal position. The rest of us are all struggling a lot for grip through these opening corners, whereas the all-wheel drive cars, and there were a couple of them in this race, they just have the traction that the rest of us don't. There were some other cars that were very, very good on the traction front. The Renault 5 was massively impressive getting out of the corners again, proving to be a very, very good choice of car. Although as he gets into trouble, I was having a go up the inside. Somebody's escapade onto the gravel trap there. Got to be mindful of the puddles. It's very easy to turn into some of these corners, forget where the giant puddles are, as a few cars end up in trouble trying to put power down. It was all going very busy towards the mid-pack of the field. Both me and the Black Commodore had both had issues getting slowed down into the hairpin that had dropped us back into the melee, and we're fighting amongst ourselves. Me having to try and go around the long way at the fast kink down the back straight. That would put me on the inside for the chicane. Again, we're both struggling to get stopped. Me running a little bit too deep under braking, giving the black car some issues, and he's now coming under threat from a Ferrari that's keen to have a go. The M6 losing out to that blue Ferrari. The tiniest of touches around the final corner would send both of the cars rather sideways towards the front, and Lancia Delta S4 was holding on to second place briefly as he was coming under threat from the RX-7. The Mazda getting up the inside, although the Lancia was always a threat on acceleration. It was always a threat out of the corners because it just had so much more grip than all of the cars around it. It's a huge drive over the turn for the Delta, but he is going to be stuck having to try and go the long way around into the next corner. And while, yeah, traction very good, it was lacking the grip of the Mazda Delta S4s. Well, regular viewers, you'll know the jelly car that I've built that will fall over about 15 miles an hour. I'll do it less than 15 miles an hour in the wet. Incredibly difficult cars to get tuned, to get working properly. Their suspension is just all sorts of wobble. For me, I had a fair bit of work to do, making my way through the field. It was making it quite interesting racing for me. There was plenty of overtaking to be doing in the Holden as I came up against a Porsche 911 heading up through the S's. This is a difficult place to try and go too wide. The Porsche really struggling for grip. The Holden not quite so much as around the outside on the exit of the corner. Not a normal place to get overtakes done. However, it does the job, as it will again put me for the inside line into the next corner. I can just defend if the Porsche has got a good run, and the Porsche just struggling really for grip at this stage of the race. The Holden was working pretty well. The Holden was working pretty well in the wet, but nowhere near as good as the Renault 5. Again, heading into the S is going to be too wide between the Renault 5 and the Mazda. The Renault not quite able to get the move done there, but it's the traction the car gets off the corners that is so very, very impressive. And that is, yeah, the Renault's massive strength. He's again having to try and go the long way around the RX-7. It can't quite carry the same corner speed as the RX-7 around the outside there, but as soon as it comes to putting down the power, that's when the Renault 5 excels and pretty much pulls away from everything as he'd get the move done on that Mazda, put him up into second, and had to go and try chase down Johnson. For me, well, we would be in the battle for 4th place. The front 3 were far faster than us, and we were quite a bit faster than the vehicles behind, but between me and the MR2, there was not much to choose. The MR2 was a bit better on traction. My Holden, quite a bit better under braking as we head down towards the hairpin. A big slide from the Toyota on a puddle had given me an opportunity. Unfortunately, that inside line, there is a horrible puddle on the inside of that banked corner, which meant I couldn't really carry the speed that I wanted to when I was so far down on the track. And as we now head up towards the S's, we were going to have to try and go too wide. For me, I slightly outbraked myself. I was a little bit too wide on the outside there and couldn't quite hold on to the position, and the MR2, as I said, has got that acceleration to fend me off as into the next corner. Again, the Toyota's struggling a little bit for oversteer. Those MR2s can be notoriously twitchy, so I imagine driving one of them in the wet is a little bit on the scary side. One of the surprises, perhaps, in this race, a Honda Civic that we hadn't seen used in any previous events, was actually quite competitive. It was keeping up with a 288 GTO and a BMW M6. While it would never find a way past the Ferrari, the fact that it was so very close, I think, is quite an impressive feat. The Ferrari struggling for grip, the Civic on the puddle on the inside. Probably the best chance the Civic had at finding a way past the Ferrari. The Honda quick through the corners, Ferrari much faster down the straight. But yeah, the puddle on the inside of that hairpin causing issues for vehicles trying to get overtakes. At the front though, and it would be Johnson that would go on to take victory in the Porsche, even with a rather outbreaking himself into the final corner there. Yeah, the 944, sorry, a little bit too fast for the rest of the field. I think the Renault 5 did get a marginally faster lap time, catching ever so slightly, but far too few laps for the Renault to do anything about it. The Mazda RX-7 would come home in third, and as I said, these front 3 were far faster than the rest of the field. We're talking 1.5, 2 seconds a lap faster, I think, than the rest of the cars. Much better suited to the rain, them lots. For me, well, we were continuing to fight for the 4th place. I was a little bit far back as we headed down towards this final chicane, but I knew how good the Commodore was under braking. The MR2 was always going to be relatively defensive as we head into the chicane. However, as he bumps across the curbs, the Toyota just runs that little bit wide, and that gives me an opportunity. It gives you a bit of an overlap to fire the Commodore up the inside into the final corner. Going to make the MR2 have to go that long way around. Now, I know how good the Toyota is on traction. This is all try to be as careful as you can with the throttle. If I got sideways with the Commodore, I knew that would be game over as we head down towards the line. In the end, the power of the Holden would just be enough to beat that MR2. I think about 0.05 of a second between the powers. Not quite as close as the RX-7 against the Buick, but still a pretty damn close finish. A great race between me and the MR2 in that one. That, though, is going to be it for this week's Versus the Community. The next one is going to be held on Thursday, the 30th of March. We are going to be on Forza Horizon 3. We're going to be doing some playground games using A-Class cars from the extreme off-road category. So things like trophy trucks, the Ford Ranger, the Mini Dakar, that kind of thing. Going to be playing some playground games with them, as they should be quite entertaining to bounce around some of the arenas. If you want to sign up and take part in that, then you can via our forums. There'll be a link in the description. Find the FailRace versus the community section, and you can sign up in there. Also, if you want to watch Johnson's view of this race, I believe there'll be a video on his channel. When that goes up, I'll put a link in the description as well, so you can go and check that one out. However, that will be it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.